There's some otters on the river down the road from me, but haven't actually seen, but keep seeing photographs of them and thinking I want to do that as well. So.
You know, I saw a family of otters on the train the other day, which would have been on.
Where were they going?
I set myself up for that one. They were they were going to
Some people
Bath.
ask us whether these things are scripted. Hello and welcome to Bokeh Face, the Digital Camera World podcast. I'm Chris George. I'm the content director at Digital Camera World. With me today, I have Mike Harris.
How-to editor of Digital Camera World.
Hello, Mike.
Hey,
How
Chris.
are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine. We're surviving without James still.
Just.
We won't keep mentioning him, but he's still off, having had his baby.
Come back, James.
But until he does, hopefully soon, we're going to continue our fortnightly discussions about all things of photography.
We are
news,
indeed.
We argue over the hot issues.
Yes.
We can answer people's problems. And we can talk about some of the themes and things that are coming or going in the world of imaging. So we start off with our In Focus section. Yes, and this week we're going to be talking about smart telescopes. So these are telescopes which have a built-in camera, so which are essentially bringing astrophotography to the masses.
Yes. Are you much of an astrophotographer yourself, Chris?
No, we can come on to that in a bit, what I do and don't know about it. So I have some experience, but I wouldn't call myself an astrophotographer.
I'm the same, I think.
So, and then we're going to move up to our new gear section. I'm going to be looking at a new compact camera, which I would say is like a travel zoom camera. It's a kind of one of those types of camera that kind of disappeared, and now Panasonic have brought it back. So we're talking about that. And then our troubleshooting section, we're going to talk about something that's dear to your heart. What's the best lens for motorsport or for air shows, which is another great example of this type of lens and how that market has completely changed in the last 10 years or so. So, and as ever, do please support us by leaving us comments, send us emails, and give us a like, subscribe, and share the love around. And so without further ado, let's move on to In Focus. So Mike, smart telescopes. Let's start by asking you what you know about astrophotography. Have you done it? What's your experience?
Limited. I've photographed the moon. I've done star trails on a couple of occasions. And I have shot the Milky Way before.
The big three.
The big three, yes. In my capacity as deputy editor of In Photo back in the day. But I'm by no means an astrophotography expert. And I think that's why these smart telescopes kind of exist, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I did actually own a telescope once and did battle trying to find planets and see them. It was a struggle actually finding them and seeing them and getting an image that was vaguely in focus. I didn't take the next step to actually taking images of them because I didn't think the image I was even seeing was worth taking a picture of, and also I felt by the time I'd actually seen the Mars closed up, that was enough. And I think that's the thing is, astrophotography in the old sense of setting a camera on thing, you had to have some experience of being an astronomer and then to set up with it. And you have the double expense of the camera and the telescope and the connecting the two together, which isn't straightforward. But these things, smart telescopes, are telescope and a camera all in one. And particularly in this case, remarkably small.
I can't get over how small that is.
Well, it's sort of small enough that you can put it in your bag when you go away for the weekend and do some astrophotography when you're doing whatever you do at the weekend, Mike.
I reckon you could get that in a big puffy jacket pocket, to be honest.
You could.
Yeah.
You could. Yes. along with your snacks and your other camera. Yeah. No, so I mean, smart telescopes are a thing that kind of that had to happen a bit before, but like about 5 or 6 years old. Two companies, Vaonis and Unistellar, companies we've never heard of before, startups. They started with like Kickstarter funding and stuff. It was a kind of promise of it coming, and then they eventually delivered on these things. And that market has matured quite a long time, quite quickly in that 5 years. And now we have people like DwarfLab with this. We have another camera, which is, if you're into astrophotography, you know very well, called ZWO, who make all the specialist cameras to put on the back of the telescopes. Cameras without lenses that just plug into the back of you have a sensor that goes on the back of your telescope. So they're quite well known. So they've come into the arena and make these smart telescopes unbelievably affordable. I mean, this one here is very small, but it's like $400, under £400.
Yeah, that's very good.
Yeah. So and what these allow you to do is take pictures of space and see things, nebulae and things that you used to see in science books. You can actually take them yourself in your back garden. And do you know the other great thing about this?
Go on.
Because my experience of doing astrophotography, which in the UK is always best to do in the winter when you have longer nights and the stars that you can see are more impressive. I was thinking winter. It's actually really cold. It's not great fun. But this, you can leave it outside and take pictures and control it from your tent or from your lounge.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Because the key thing is, it doesn't actually work on its own.
Yeah.
You do also need a smartphone or a tablet to work with it, and that's where that's your control. There's no knobs or dials or screens on this. This is all controlled from an app on your phone.
Yeah, yeah. It doesn't come with a tripod though, does it?
No.
No.
Well, some of them do, and some of them don't. And I think with this one, it's an accessory.
Yeah.
But obviously, chaps like you have already got a tripod, so we don't sell you another one.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's really neat. So something I've been reading about, actually, I think they call it, is it live stacking?
Yep.
So basically what makes these things really clever is they can take multiple short exposures and then they basically do some kind of jazzy, computational blending in the background, where essentially they reduce the noise, increase the clarity and the brightness, and you end up with a, fairly decent looking photo at the end of it.
Well, you're seeing stuff that you wouldn't see with your naked eye with a normal telescope. So it's amazing. These nebulae, with amazing, multicolored gases and stuff, brown stars and stuff. As I say, you used to see diagrams in books. You now take those pictures yourself. And I've seen people who, it's a good friend of ours, Jeremy Gilbert, who's retired, bought one of these and he's putting some brilliant pictures on Facebook after, a couple of weeks of owning it. And you don't need all that experience to do it because it guides you to the place. You can go and ask it to go and find it. There's some setup that you have to do before it starts, but it goes on, guides it, and then it takes those images. And also it has most of them have trackers in them, so they actually follow it over, so you can have quite long exposures all the same.
I mean, maybe this is sacrilege, but I kind of wonder as well if you're, even if you're an enthusiast or very serious astrophotographer or astronomer, as it were, it's the kind of thing that if you were going on holiday or something, or you were going away somewhere for work and you knew something was happening, or you're in somewhere near a dark sky area or something, you could just take this along with you, right? And still enjoy a bit of, have a bit of fun.
Well, I think it does. I mean, it allows you to have that enjoyment without having so much of the pain, I think. It's going out and looking. I think astrophotography, you have to remember, is you can't do it every day of the year anyway, because, there's a cloud in the way.
Yeah.
Or it's not actually dark. Let's get into the summer months. Finding times when it's dark to do it is hard. If a full moon's out, it's quite hard to do, as you've known from doing, Milky Way. You have to wait for the full moon to be out of the way to do that. So it's you can't do it every night. So having something that makes it easier and there's windows when you can do it is great. And I think we all. We're seeing such great pictures, aren't we, of outer space from the space satellites at the moment. The James Webb, the Hubble beforehand, taking amazing images, and this allows us to have that small experience of doing it ourselves.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's one of those things as well where astrophotography in general, or astronomy in general, a little bit like photography really, is quite an incredibly high learning curve.
Yeah.
It's quite sort of daunting to get into. And if you start looking into even entry-level telescopes, the kind of kit you need, especially if you want to take photos, attachments and things, kind of get that feeling that unless you're spending a certain amount of money, perhaps you're not getting something overly usable or whatever. But the fact that you can go spend about £400, £350, £400, get this, take it home, stick it out in the garden. Oh, and by the way, I think it can kind of reduce the effects of light pollution as well, I believe.
Yes, it's very good.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about that so much, which is great for us who live in near large conurbations.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to be, you don't even have to be in a big city or whatever to have light pollution becoming an issue, do you? So
no.
I think something like this is a great portal into the sort of wider world of astronomy and astrophotography.
Yeah, and I mean these with some of them come with them something to buy as an accessory, have a solar filter so you can observe sunspots on them.
I think this
sun.
one actually,
Yes,
I saw in the box.
I think comes
magnetic one, isn't it? Yeah.
So which is amazing. Or have eclipses. We've got eclipse coming up this year in Europe. So really, really good for that. We've seen great pictures of close-ups of the moon with smart telescopes as well. So
yeah. The only small negative I guess I've seen, which I think I can understand, is that because you're essentially viewing a digital feed on your phone or your tablet, that you kind of remove the kind of optical closeness of looking through a more traditional telescope and kind of feeling like you're it is
a bit removed, isn't it?
Yeah.
You don't have the experience of getting freezing cold, watching it, waiting.
And there is something special, isn't there? There is something special about seeing that.
Exactly. It just, in a way, it does perhaps make it too easy for you for purists. I think the other thing is these are not designed to win Astrophotography of the Year competitions.
Yeah.
And most of them have relatively small size sensors. This is one of the cheapest ones, and it has a 2 megapixel sensor. So it's never great. I don't think they've pushed the pixel count up on them to a big degree, because obviously we don't want to keep those pixels relatively large, because you're talking about obviously taking pictures in low light.
Yeah. And let's not forget as well, there are plenty of astrophotographers out there who take kind of astro landscapes, as it were, but never ever get into deep sky or deep space, whatever you want to call it, astrophotography. And something like this actually allows you to do that, doesn't it? So
I think there's a kind of a serious thing, and say it's a bit of a it's a cheats way into astrophotography, but also some of these ones are actually used because you post things online and stuff. They kind of use for like citizen science. Multiple people with these around the world observing stuff and be able to compare things and going, oh, there's a star we didn't know existed, or whatever. It's quite cool, I think.
Yeah, I do as well. I think it's quite delightful.
I think the key thing is, if you're buying one, quite a lot of price points, $400 up to about $3,000, I guess, in that sort of price range. The key differences you're getting are sensor size. Do you want a bigger sensor, more megapixels? The field of view is different between them. Do you want one which is optimized to more deep space stuff or more for kind of, whole star fields? So, but there's more and more choice. I mean, I think I think we've probably reviewed all of the ones. Well, not me personally, more an expert does it. Jamie Carter does lots of our reviews. He was definitely an expert, and so we reviewed, I think, nearly all of them that come onto the market. But I think it's just great. Kate, it's why I love imaging. It's just this idea that the new device comes along, I say only 5 years ago, does something completely different and solves a problem. Like astrophotography is difficult, needs very expensive equipment, coming up with a solution.
Yeah. And I mean, I was just looking at the review earlier, actually, and Jamie's given it 4 stars, which I think is high praise from someone like him who's proper astrophotographer.
Well, obviously
there
are better ones with more resolution or more features and whatever, but I think it's a good range of things it can do. And as I say, I think it's I bought a telescope because I was vaguely interested in space and wanted to look at stuff, and did it for a bit, and then gave it to someone else so they could have enjoyment with it. So
yeah. It also reminds me of the old those was it? I don't know if it was Samsung or no, it might have been Motorola. Can you remember the PEBL, the flip phones?
Oh yeah.
It looks like
loves PEBL. Yeah, big
version of that.
It is. Yeah. It's a giant version of that. Yes. Yeah. No, but beautifully designed. And some of these ones, I think Vionis and Unistellar with their initial designs, which kind of is big kind of objects which stood there, and they would look like works of art on their own. So you could have them in your living room, and people would go, "Oh, what's that? Oh, let me explore outer space, sir. Do you want to have a go?"
Well, that's another thing, actually. This just goes on a shelf, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't take up any space. Yeah. So, because I've been to people's houses before where they've got like really big, expensive telescopes and sort of shunted in the garage or something out of the way, and because of that, they never come out and all that kind of thing. So, I think this is a great piece of equipment, and it piques my interest and obviously piques yours. And I think we're probably kind of the target audience, really.
Yeah, exactly. So. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, Mike, that's enough of smart telescopes. Let's talk about some other camera gear. Our gear up section, we're going to be looking at return of yet another type of compact camera and the rise of the all-in-one travel compact. So we're talking about the Panasonic TZ300. It's a new compact camera from Panasonic and has a really big zoom on it, which has a 15 times zoom ratio. And for me, it's a return of a type of camera. It didn't quite disappear, but there used to be loads of these around.
Yeah.
And we call them like a travel camera. It's a great all-in-one camera. And unlike lots of other things in this market, is for a zoom compact, it's got a half decent size sensor. It's got a 1-inch sensor in it. So, it's pretty good. I think you and I would be pretty happy to use that as like a pocket camera for
definitely
taking holidays and stuff. So Panasonic kind of discontinued this, the predecessor, the 200, 100 before. The 300 has now come out, and it's great to see these cameras reappearing.
Yeah, and it's truly compact. There's a lot of compact cameras around nowadays, the sort of more premium end. Thinking of your X100VI and things of that ilk that they're quite bulky, they're quite beefy, but this is a nice size. Yeah.
And with a 15 times zoom. Properly. What's the spec?
That is a 24 to 360 millimeter equivalent f3.3 to 6.4, which is a monster zoom. That's going to serve you very well on holiday and when you're out and about, isn't it?
Well, it's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because that is a super zoom, as I tend to call it. Anything over 7-8 times zoom ratio is a super zoom, and that is a proper zoom, so 15 times. And I think what's really interesting, and it's all about sensor size. The bigger the sensor in a compact camera, the better the quality, and the more we're going to like it generally. and this has a 1-inch sensor. And did you know that all bridge cameras now, the bigger, beefier things, some of them with much bigger zooms in there, all have 1/2.3-inch sensor. The 1-inch sensor bridge camera disappeared.
Yeah.
So,
and you really notice the difference.
You certainly do.
You know, I like the P1100 or the P1000, and
it's not a pocket camera.
No, that's not a pocketable camera. That's got a ridiculous equivalent zoom range. I'm struggling to remember what it is now. Isn't it up to 3,000?
It's over 100 times.
Yeah. It's 125 times.
Yeah.
There you go. I do remember that. And but yeah, where it struggles, what lets it down is its image quality.
Yeah.
And I think if we were to ever get a true successor to that camera, a 1-inch sensor would be lovely.
Cool. Be even bigger then.
Yeah, it would be even bigger. And obviously the size of the sensor is kind of an integral part of its reach.
Yeah. But 15 times is a great zoom ratio. Isn't it? Got a seriously wide angle lens at one end, and got a proper telephoto at the other end. In terms of, and that's why they kind of described as an all-in-one camera, or to some people a travel camera. You can travel light and shoot practically anything you see with this one camera, and it's actually really nice. The design is really good.
Yeah, it looks great.
Yeah.
And it feels great in the hand as well, doesn't it? It feels really solid, really well made. I think shout out to Lumix, to be honest, because I think we don't give Panasonic Lumix enough love in the photography sphere, to be honest. I think obviously in the video sphere and for content creators, they get an awful lot of love. Yep. But when you got cameras like this, and I'm actually a bit of a fan of the S9. I think that's a lovely,
there had to be
little
one
camera.
or two.
I don't know. I just think it's a great camera.
A lot of people loved it.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I wish it had a viewfinder, but it's so small and whatnot. But anyway, I do think they make some really good quality cameras, and I think this is definitely one of them. Just looking at the specs here, it's not just premium in build. You've got some really nice specs. You've got a 5-axis optical image stabilization.
Yeah. Which is handy when you've got long telephoto zoom built in.
Exactly. You've got a max shooting speed of 10 frames per second in AFS, but for continuous 7 frames per second. These kind of cameras are not what you want for action, but 10 frames per second, I think, for a lot of people is
it's quite good,
enough.
Isn't it? You just capture a particular moment, whether it's like bride throwing a bouquet or child moving towards you, trying to get a child, so they're actually smiling, and that megasecond when they're smiling is quite good. There's all sorts of things where a fast frame rate is actually useful in the digital age.
Yeah,
it's not really for the fastest action. There's all sorts of micro events where taking a burst of pictures is quite useful.
Yeah, and actually, you mentioned weddings. Just generally, if you've got a group of people or whatever, taking a quick burst, and because inevitably when you take a shot, someone's got their eyes closed.
At least one person had their eyes closed. Yeah. We've been making an unfortunate gurning expression.
That's me. Yeah. That's me. Yeah. When I try to make the thumbnail for these videos, and I'm trying to screenshot it, I'm always literally just like, So anyway, video, you do 4K 30p. And you've got 1080, 120p for a bit of slow motion as well. Yep. So, that's not bad either. I think it's a nice little camera. Oh, and a 20.1 megapixel
1-inch sensor.
1-inch sensor. Yeah.
And, some good old-fashioned controls on the top.
Twisty dials.
Twisty dial. Manual, aperture priority, shutter speed, program, exposure modes. Just like in the old days.
But not like in the old days, or the really old days, no viewfinder.
Well, that viewfinder is, that's, I think, one of the more controversial things about this comeback is there was a viewfinder. It was small, it wasn't brilliant, but it did have one.
Yeah.
And it's kind of what what they're taking away with that is kind of exacerbated by the fact this is a fixed 3-inch screen on the back, so you can't tilt it or rotate it and that's a problem because sometimes it's sunny, sometimes you're outside. Yeah, do you remember?
You're talking to someone. You're talking to someone that had a D800 for years with a fixed screen on the back, and never had any problems. But then again, it had a viewfinder. But you're very right.
Well, one or the other helps with that problem of actually sometimes it's sunny.
Yeah,
and sometimes that's when you want to take your pictures.
Where do you live on viewfinders? Because I prefer viewfinders screens. I prefer tilting as opposed to fully articulated.
Well, we haven't got either here.
I know we don't have either. No, exactly, I'm just saying in general, what do you prefer?
We're trying to have both, can't you?
I don't know. I feel like
I want it all. We're going to give it to me.
Someone's got to design one.
It's always the kind of next generation has yet another hinge to be able to move it into another position.
Yeah, I kind of feel as a photographer, a tilting rear LCD is better. But for a videographer, an articulating one that flips out is better.
Well, I guess that's an old camcorder design, is that flip out kind of way of doing it. And I guess it rotates, because obviously everyone wants to film themselves. It's not just for selfies, is it? Actually, people want to properly use it, actually vlogging and stuff to camera and stuff, so they want the screen pointing towards them. So
that's a good point, actually, and I think
not for vloggers, this camera.
No, but I think it's a shame because I think it is the kind of camera where you might take a selfie or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that though, I think it's great. Dare I say it's got a little bit of a Leica-y look, especially on the back.
Well, it might come in a Leica form at some point in the future, mightn't it? Because that happens with Panasonic compact cameras. But yeah, no, really nice. And I think what's his biggest opposition, what's the biggest rival in the thing is, it's a camera that's been so hard to find in stock in the last few years, I guess since COVID. And then it got even worse with the ever-growing popularity of compact cameras again. The Sony RX100, which is on its 7th generation now, but, a great camera, much more expensive than that. It's kind of near £1,500.
Yeah.
You can actually find it in stock. This is, $900, £900 kind of price point. So nice for an all-in-one camera. I think it's a good price point.
Yep. And a really nice colour as well.
Yeah, what would you call that? Black?
Nah, I think it's like that makes me sound terribly stupid. But actually, if you look around the back, it's got a grey, isn't it? Yeah, sort of a metallic-y grey.
Is grey still in? Is everyone still painting their house grey?
Oh no, I don't think so. Yeah. I heard the other day that green, apparently millennial green is out of fashion. Green. Yeah. What colour's my living room?
Millennial green.
Millennial green. There you go. But I don't need an article to tell me that I'm out of fashion. So, I knew that already.
Not many cameras you can buy in millennial green, aren't there?
No, but my phone's millennial green.
Is it?
Yeah. So, I don't know. There might be a leatherette. Is there a green?
Leica make green cameras, don't they?
They do.
Or khaki ones or
Safari.
Yeah.
There you go. More green cameras, please.
Yes, for Mike.
And the millennials.
No. It's great. It feels solid. Love it. Should we move on to something for more serious photographers now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
One extreme to the other, really, isn't it?
Exactly, yes. So in our troubleshooting section, we're going to be talking about super telephoto zoom lenses and the lenses you need for aviation photography and for motorsports. So in our troubleshooting section, we're going to answer the question, what's the best type of lens to use for motorsports and for aviation photography? Mike, you are kind of in-house expert on this because you are a very keen motorsport photographer.
Yes, this is where I live, Chris.
Yes. So you know all about this, so we'll be fine. So, okay. So I want to get into motorsport. What sort of lens should I be looking for?
Okay. Well, basically, you want to be able to get to at least 400 millimeters, 35 mil equivalent.
Yep.
But if you can get to 600 millimeters or more, that's probably a bit of a sweet spot, I'd say.
Yep.
Whether you're on an big international circuit like Silverstone, or if you're lucky somewhere further afield where you've got large runoff areas.
So the key point is you've got to take yourself beyond where your normal telephoto zoom would take you, which would typically be like possibly a 70 to 300.
Yeah.
Something like that. So you want to be slightly longer than that, or 70 to 200. You definitely want to be longer than that. You need to be closer in, more cropped in with that using your lens.
But I think the key here for a lot of these lenses is the zoom range. Yep. So what I've got here is the Nikon 180 to 600. And we've got your Sony, which is the 200 to 600. Now, what's good about that is if you're in certain places at a circuit, certain corners and whatnot, you can actually be shooting at around 200 millimeters and be quite happy.
Because the cars come towards you and get closer.
Exactly. Yeah. And there are some points, especially on smaller circuits, where you could almost reach out and touch the rider or the driver. So that's what's good about these. They're the kind of lenses that you could buy, one-off purchase, and it doesn't matter whether you're going down to your local Castle Combe or whether you're going to Silverstone, or whether you're going further afield. You could be one and done, basically. The other thing, which I think is important about motorsport photography and also aviation photography, is it's not the same as wildlife in that you don't need these super, super fast apertures. I've shot a lot of wildlife, and sadly, as soon as you go into the woods, things get dark real quick. And, you really do want those kind of f4, f2.8 lenses. But motorsport and aviation, middle of the day, nice, even if it's overcast, you're still going to be absolutely fine with these lenses shooting at f sort of 6.3 and upwards, really.
Yeah. So I think it's really interesting. I mean, I think this type of lens, this super telephoto zoom, I'm going to call them, is brilliant. And they're brilliant because they're relatively recent invention. Yeah. I mean, the first two significant ones, I think, were both from Sigma, released at exactly the same time, both 150 to 600 mil, one in their contemporary range and one in their sports range. Yeah. One essentially was a bit more bulky and more weatherproof than the other.
A bit is an understatement.
Yeah. So, and obviously more expensive. And, they defined this class of lens. And obviously they do a modern version of that. The DSLR versions of that sadly disappearing from the market, but still great option of lens because what you're too young to remember, but what we used to do before these came, before the 150 to 600 mil lens came along, what do people used to do?
I don't know, Chris.
Well, they used to fudge it really. I mean, I've taken some brilliant pictures at the end of my film days, I guess it was. So it's 20 years ago or so, of things like surfing and of polo and things like that. We really need long lenses because it's a big field and the horses go to the other end. And I used to use a Sigma 400mm f5.6, quite popular, affordable option at that lens. But people used to fudge it with telephoto lenses, with what frankly awful mirror lenses to get extra focal length. But you just, without buying those big, what's the option to the other option to this is obviously a big professional lens, a 600mm f4 or a 400mm f2.8 with a teleconverter.
Remortgage the house.
Exactly, remortgage the house. Now these things are, well, everything's relative, but affordable for people like you and me. Hence, about you and me own one because we've been able to afford them in a way that we couldn't afford or justify a 600mm f4. So yeah, that's what used to happen in the old days. And then these came around, trying to guess how long it was, but it's only 10 years ago, isn't it?
Yeah,
guess
realistically.
it's that Sigma came out with those two. Then everyone's done it. Tamron produced one. And then, of course, all the mirrorless really took off, and Sony, Canon, and Nikon have all produced their versions of this type of lens in their mirrorless mounts.
Yeah, and this, the 180 to 600, I was working on Info, the Nikon magazine at the time when this launched, and there was such a buzz about this lens.
Yeah.
Actually, also, despite what I was saying about needing faster lenses, it's also exceedingly popular with enthusiast wildlife photographers as well.
And it's not always dark when you take pictures of wildlife.
No.
Yeah.
And this lens, if I remember rightly, it was actually quite hard to get a hold of for a while.
Yeah.
Because it was so popular. And really, the only downside is that it's pretty hefty, because it's an internal zoom, which is lovely to have. It gives the lens a real premium feel, but it takes up an awful lot of space in your bag. And actually, my usual camera bag that I use, I can't put that lens in it. It's just too big. But other than that, it's excellent. I usually use it with a monopod because it's quite hefty. And before that,
it's great. I mean, that's the thing to say to people about monopods is monopods, feel like they're there as being to give stability to the camera, but they're actually to take the weight off your shoulder.
Oh yeah.
In between shots, if you tell you about what you do at weekends, but if you're doing motorsport, there's a lot of time you're just standing there, for the car to come round again on the track to where you are. And, you can support it with the monopod. It's brilliant.
Yeah, I think it's particularly relevant with motorsport photography. You can kind of track the car, come round, or bike or whatever, put the lens down, go back up again, put it down by your side. If you're shooting aviation and you've got planes in the sky for long periods of time, or definitely if you're shooting wildlife, even something like a 70 to 200 mil gets heavy pretty quickly when you're shooting wildlife, isn't it? Because you're quite often just stood there, just waiting for the bird to take off. Or
exactly,
and
because it's slightly awkward because the centre of gravity is, you can't really hang it around your neck in the way you probably hang a 70 to 200 around your neck and get away with it. But not a 150 to 600 or 200 to 600 in the case of my lens. It would just,
there's
it'd be a liability to yourself and to the lens.
And possibly to others if you turn around too quick.
Well, turn around quickly with it.
So actually, I was using a lens, super telephoto once, and at Longley, I think it was photographing the giraffes. And some guy, I couldn't see him because I was obviously cropped in looking at the giraffe. Some guy literally just walked backwards into me, camera then hit my face. I think both of us went home with lumps on our head. But anyway, there are other lenses out there which I think are worth shouting out about.
Yeah.
That can get you even closer to the action.
Yeah.
So Canon does the RF 200 to 800 mil.
Yeah.
And Sony does the 400 to 800 mil.
Yeah.
The Sony's f6.3 to 8, and the Canon is f6.3 to 9. I think for motorsport photography, I'd probably go for the Canon because you've got that larger zoom range that I was talking about from 200 to 800. But obviously, if you want something slightly faster, although the difference between f8 and f9, you can go for the Sony. And
it depends what camera you got as well, doesn't it?
It does.
To be fair.
Yeah. And also what you're shooting for wildlife, maxing out at f8 and f9, I think is just too much in most occasions. But also if you've got a full frame camera and you're not shooting on a monopod, you're shooting handheld, and you've got to factor in camera shake. If it's a super high resolution full frame camera, you could be looking at trying to double the reciprocal rule or even tripling it.
Yeah.
800
Well, exactly.
mil.
If
That's
you want sharp, and it's the trouble. It's very demanding.
Yeah.
High resolution sensors now.
Yeah. So I still actually think that these guys really are the sweet spot. But you do have those choices.
Yeah, and I think the crop factor cameras, Fujifilm, OM have got options, haven't they? They obviously start off with a slight advantage of having the smaller sensor, but they have decent options to go for as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've actually been testing the OM system 150 to 400, which is the f4.5, which is not in this class of lenses because it's about £7,000. But they do the 100 to 400 f5 to 6.3, which is about 1,300 quid, which is great.
Yeah,
and the 150 to 600.
That's the price point these lenses are in, isn't it? Now, which is to say, we'll say it's affordable to some people.
Yeah,
it's affordable to us, whatever that means.
Well, and of course, you can always go back and find the Sigma Contemporary in the sports on the used market. I've used both of those lenses, and my feeling is that if you are going to buy the DSLR era 150 to 600 from Sigma, you're just better off getting the Contemporary because it's going to be cheaper. It's an awful lot lighter. Yeah. And the optical quality technically is better on the Sport, but it's very, very minimal. So, yeah, my recommendation would be to get the Contemporary.
So that's available in Canon EF and Nikon
F
mounts. Yeah.
Yeah. I've got a sneaky feeling it might even still be available, the Contemporary, to buy new. But I'm not sure.
It was. I think I've got a feeling they're phasing it out. As ever with these things, these hang on in the market for quite a while. So,
okay.
And inevitably, there'll be, those lenses were both really popular. There'd be lots of them around. There'd be lots of people upgrading or changing. So you'd be able to get them.
Yeah, and I can't overstate how if you do have the choice, having a lighter lens, the 150 to 600 Sport is a beautiful lens, but it's ridiculously heavy. And even if you're using a monopod, just walking around, especially if you're doing motorsport, because you're quite often walking all around the track. Yeah. So you've also got to factor in not just when you're stood there, but also lugging it around. For aviation, I think it's a bit different because I think at air shows and whatnot, you can pretty much pick a spot, set up and stay there.
Yeah, I think so. You probably are. Yeah, because there's good positions, aren't there, along the runway? We want, if you're in a good position, you probably stay there.
Yeah.
I haven't really used. It's a recent purchase, mine. So I haven't really had lots of experience of using it. But I'm really looking forward to it. There's some otters on the river down the road from me, but haven't actually seen. But keep seeing photographs of them and thinking I want to do that as well. So.
I saw a family of otters on the train the other day, which would have been on.
Where were they going?
I set myself up for that one. They were they were going to Bath.
People ask us whether these things are scripted. They aren't they?
No. Can you tell?
Walk into it.
Yeah, they were on the River Avon, so they might have been on a day out to Bradford on Avon.
Well, they are. I think it's not just one. Is it called them a family of otters? But
what's the collective for otters? Yeah. A slink of otters. Yeah, that sounds right.
I've even heard there's beaver along that river as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Damn, that was a bad joke. I'm sorry.
So yeah, there are lots of opportunities for using. You've got a longer lens, you can do those things. It's just not possible, not realistically possible, like a 70 to 300 mm zoom.
Yeah.
So it's good. I think that's our advice, isn't it? Quite easy. I don't think there's any real options now. I wouldn't recommend trying to put a telephoto on a budget teleconverter, rather, on a budget telephoto zoom.
No, I think they're just too slow. But I think as well, like if you're a wildlife, if you're using it for wildlife or whatever, you can employ kind of field kind of craft to try and separate the subject from the background, for example. You can still, with lenses like this, you can still get that really lovely blurred out kind of dreamy background. And the other thing I will say, which I found out sort of lately for sure, is that especially when you're shooting wildlife, there's no lens in the world that's actually long enough. Like I've gone out with an 800 mil, Nikon's 800 mil prime, and the wildlife's always too far away. I think an awful lot of wildlife photography is about putting yourself in the position where you get within the focal range that you're working with.
It still doesn't get you to the other side of the river, does it?
No,
so close up. So
it doesn't.
You have to use some things. Yeah, quite right. Good.
Oh, one more thing before we go. Absolutely excellent choice for Safari.
Yes.
Because again, one and done. A lot of Safari stuff's happening during the day. You could take either of those on a Safari, and probably not take anything else with you. And I think you come back with some absolutely fantastic photos.
Definitely designed for that. Great. Well, Mike, that's another good episode. Looking forward to the next one, and just remind everyone to like and subscribe. And as we always say, Mike,
F8 and be there for next time.
Thanks.